Good afternoon. You are watching NMH at 1, the broadcast which brings you the latest news in Namibia, Africa and the world, all through the lunch hour, highlighting current affairs, economic news, sports and international headlines. Looking at today's headlines, David Indongo bows out as Kara's head of police, readies to take on Khomas. Southern Africa Sub-Regional Forum on Artificial Intelligence highlights upscaling workforce skills. Oniipa town to host first ever Cultural Tourism Expo, and 18 human trafficking victims rescued before being sold into slavery. I am Ashwin Berry, keeping you company for the next hour. In today's midday news update, trials in West Africa of a new malaria vaccine developed by Oxford University show it gives up to 80% protection for 2 years. The jab was tested on more than 400 children. Malaria, a parasitic infection spread by mosquitoes, kills about 500,000 children each year in sub-Saharan Africa. The Oxford team is working with the world's biggest vaccine manufacturer, the Serum Institute of India. Now, the researchers say at least 100 million doses could be produced at a low cost next year. They plan to submit data to the World Health Organization within weeks to try and get a jab approved. Now, remember to engage with these stories on social media as we share some community news stories from across the country on the other side of this short break in our visual news segment.
Take a load off and tune into another episode of Brave Namibia, as we take a look at both ordinary and extraordinary Namibians. Brave Namibia is broadcasted on NTV Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. and oneup2.com, as well as broadcasted on the following Facebook platforms on Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Republican, Algemeine Zeitung, Namibian Sun, and all Namibia Media Holdings pages. For more information, contact the Brave team at brave@synergy.com.na. Brave Namibia, for the ordinary and extraordinary Namibians.
Heading into visual news, Professor Chilidzi Marwala, Vice-Chancellor of the University of Johannesburg and incoming Rector of the United Nations University, was one of the speakers at the opening ceremony of the Southern Africa Regional Forum on Artificial Intelligence. Marwala touched on the upscaling of skills of those in the workforce already. He emphasized on the holistic approach of the education system. Octavia Tibes attended the event.
Around 30 million people in Africa were thrust into extreme poverty in 2021, and approximately 22 million jobs were lost. Furthermore, growth has faltered significantly, and according to the World Bank, it is expected to further decelerate in 2022 amid a global environment with multiple and new shocks, high volatility and uncertainty. Some analysts have called for a great reset to relaunch the African economies. Are great, and if we make the right choices, they are even greater. These challenges range from the impact of climate change as a growing threat to the lives and the livelihoods of Africa, to the economic disruptions stemming from the Russia-Ukraine war, which could push a further 1.8 million people across the African continent into extreme poverty in 2022, and another 2.1 million in 2023.
Now, the outgoing head of Clara's police, David Indongo, had his parade yesterday as he prepares to leave the region following his promotion as the new Khomas Region Commissioner. This comes after Police Chief Sebastian Deitunga's final shuffle ahead of his retirement. Indongo served for more than 6 years as the Clara's Region Commissioner. Monique Adams was there.
It is my distinguished honor to address this parade at a time I'm about to hand over the region to the incoming Police Regional Commander, Commissioner Maurius Katamira, who shall take over from me as an outgoing regional commander of Karas region. I have worked six amazing years, of which 3 years and 3 months I was entrusted with the heading of operational and administration of police in the region. I would like to outline some of the notable achievements that took place during my tenure as a regional commander of this region. About 212 members were promoted to different ranks and appointed in various capacities. Among promoted members, 127 are males and 85 females. 4 deputy commissioners were promoted, 7 chief inspectors, 6 inspectors, 28 warrant officer class 1, 57 warrant officers class 2, 98 sergeant class 1, and 12 sergeant class 2. The current approved regional structure, we're supposed to be 2,181, operating with an actual of 605 only. This left us with 1,576 vacant posts at the Namibian Police Force, Karas region. On a sad note, the region lost a number of police officers, about 12, and 2 civilians, due to natural death and the COVID-19 related complications. May their soul continue resting in eternal peace. The working environment of members is not left unnoticed. Thus, the region have benefited from the following police infrastructure. Nualduver Police Station and official accommodation was constructed at the tune of 56 million Namibian dollars. Arua Police Station barracks were constructed. Hietmansua Police Station female barracks were renovated, and about 5 police stations were renovated in the region under the program of Ministry of Justice, namely Alwab, Kues, Ariamsfrey, Betani, and Aus police stations. A plot for a new police regional headquarters was identified, and once funds are made available, construction will commence.
The town of Oniipa is expected to host its first ever Cultural Tourism Expo, focusing on artistic activities, clothing, and tourism. The expo is expected to kick off from 28 September to 2 October. Founder of the expo, Actor Ferry Lucky Kwedi, said cultural tourism is a real economic driver as more visitors are expected to give extra revenue.
At first, I'll probably say it took us so many years, generations after generations, without people knowing what cultural tourism would bring to our communities, the potential benefits of cultural tourism. So, yeah, bring them. Cultural tourism is a real economic driver. In simple terms, I would say tourism engagement in the areas will give us extra revenues in areas by just embracing our cultural heritages and tourism attraction spots, and that's in our communities or in the country in general. All these new experiences would help in diversifying the local economy, supporting small businesses and enable them to expand, and they will be generating greater income than usual. You see, once we bring in these new initiatives, so there will be more income that will be generated. That's the revenue that the community generates. I don't know if you We have destination marketing. This is really thriving around. This is really thriving around the world, and it is providing. It is like.
The Namibia University of Science and Technology headlines today's Namibian Sun after the institution lowered its pass mark. This story and more from the country's leading daily newspapers in the newspaper review.
Tourismus Namibia is a weekly tourism show that brings you the latest news in the tourism industry and topics related to that. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact tourismus@synergy.com.na for news and advertising related queries. Tourismus, bring the world to Namibia.
Thank you for staying with NMH at 1. Let's get into today's newspaper review. In the Namibian Sun, it leads with the country's second largest university, which is ushering in a new regime, which will see students who do not meet the pass mark receiving compensatory marks to assist them to reach 50%. Only students who scored between 45% and 49% will be eligible to receive compensatory marks. It is understood that the Executive Committee of the Namibia University of Science and Technology is worried about the institution's high failure rate, so much so that it has since sanctioned a full probe to determine its cause. There are also talks that the majority of the accounting cohort failed to meet the minimum pass mark during the first semester this year. This information is corroborated by official NAST documents, which Namibian Sun has seen. Now, in the paper's page 3, concerns have been raised ahead of the anticipated integration of the Ministry of Public Enterprises into a directorate of the Finance Ministry, with questions asked on whether the latter ministry has the capacity to properly regulate commercial public entities. After integrating into the Finance Ministry, the Public Enterprise Ministry is envisaged to become a company in line with a recommendation by the high-level panel on the Namibian economy. Namibian Sun approached governance experts on whether enough work had been done to ensure that public entities were keeping good corporate governance standards. Now, the Republican reports on Yandre Dipena, who was allegedly responsible for an accident on 29 December 2014 near Henties Bay, in which 6 people died. Dipena says he remembers absolutely nothing from the incident. The first he remembers, according to his testimony in court, was waking up in hospital. On Republicans' page 3, we learn that Namibia is one of 9 African countries, which is the home of 11 million people, including children who are experiencing food insecurity because of floods and droughts. According to recent studies, 35 out of the 45 countries with the highest risk of climate change and its effects are situated in Africa. The German daily newspaper Allgemeine Zeitung reports that a trade fair on biomass in Namibia was held in Windhoek yesterday and will continue today. The aim of the event is to create awareness for the industry and to present the wide variety of its possibilities. Arson murder perpetrator pleads not guilty, reports AZ on page 3. A man from Ariamsvlei who allegedly doused his girlfriend with gasoline and set her on fire in 2020 has been facing trial before Judge Christy Liebenberg in the Windhoek High Court since the beginning of the week. Manfred Links, 32, who is charged with murder, allegedly doused his then-girlfriend Michelle Rolf and her daughter with gasoline and set them on fire on New Year's Day in 2020. The 13-month-old girl survived the ordeal while her mother died of her injuries after 12 days on January 12, 2020 in a hospital in Keetmanshoop. Stay with us as we continue with more news from the local newspapers after the break.
Active Kids is an initiative under the MyZone brand that aims to provide exciting and easy activities and fun stories. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact zone@synergy.com.na. Active Kids, where we actively invest in your future.
Continuing with our newspaper review, the Namibian newspaper takes us to the political arena as the paper reports that former Minister Jerry Ekanjo has told the ruling party that he is challenging for the SWAPO vice president position, joining candidates such as Minister of Defense and Veterans Affairs Frans Kapofi and Minister of Mines and Energy Tom Alwendo, who are expecting to be nominated for the same position this weekend. The three want to challenge Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of International Relations and Cooperation Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah and Prime Minister Sarah Gongelwa Amadila. Now, the Namibian brings to light the scandalous events of this weekend, reporting that businessman Shapwa Kanyama said he was acting in self-defense when he discharged a firearm at a Windhoek nightclub. Kanyama confirmed that he was at the Klein Windhoek nightclub when a fight broke out in the early morning hours, but denied that he had been involved in the fight, adding that he discharged his firearm to disperse a crowd of people who were fighting. Former Deputy Prime Minister Libertina Amatila has challenged a call by the Minister for Marginalized Communities, Roya Kuikoko, to establish a Ministry of Indigenous Affairs, saying there's no need for such a ministry. This information is contained in today's New Era, which added that the Deputy Minister believes that the development of the marginalized San people in the country is moving at a slow pace. New Era's page 3 takes us to Walvish Bay, where a 22-member vessel crew battled a rough sea in their desperate attempt to rescue a fisherman who had gone overboard on Tuesday morning. Efforts which proved futile as they could not save the life of Daniel Vataleni Haufiku, who unfortunately drowned and was declared dead an hour later. According to the Market Watch, as new markets are opening up, Namibia recorded a significant improvement in beef exports between January 2022 to July 2022 compared to the corresponding period of 2021. According to statistics released by the Agricultural Bank of Namibia, over the review period, Namibia exported beef to 3 new markets, namely Angola, Tanzania, and Ghana. After the break, we zoom in on the possibility of a Namibian abattoir that specializes in slaughtering Wagyu cattle for premium markets. Stay with us.
The Agenda is a weekly national affairs interview program hosted every Sunday by Namibian Sun editor Toyvon Jabela, featuring a panel of high-profile newsmakers, analysts, and experts. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact agenda@synergy.com.na. The Agenda, focused on today's conversation.
Moving into economic news, a Namibian abattoir that specializes in slaughtering Wagyu cattle as well as small livestock for premium markets will soon open its doors in Rehoboth. While the C-class abattoir is already in operation, it is now getting its groundwork right to be converted into a B-class abattoir by the end of November so that it can export to SADC countries. Namibia currently has 16 Wagyu breeders, which is not enough for the abattoir to slaughter at full capacity. Saral Dutoit, a Wagyu breeder from Dobabis and chairman of the board of the DAS group of companies, who is driving the initiative along with CEO Jaco Smit, explained that the upgrading of the existing facility is underway but will not interrupt production for longer than 3 days. Our next objective is to be an A-class abattoir by the end of April next year. Then it will have processing and deboning facilities as well as packaging facilities. This initiative will be controlled and managed by the Desert Wagyu Company, which belongs to Wagyu breeders and will be managed by Barry De Beer. Now, a separate abattoir means Wagyu producers will now be paid according to marbling for their highly sought-after product and not as with their abattoirs, a given price for animals classified as an A or B class. Worldwide, Wagyu meat is considered a sought-after, high-quality niche product, and the demand far exceeds the supply. There is also a global shift in consumer preference from quantity to quality. Dutoit said they are going to target high value, premium markets with the abattoir, and producers will have 2 options for sales: delivering a slaughter-ready cow to the abattoir or supplying them with weanling calves, he said. Livestock selection is not an independent practice and should be driven by production objectives and targets. However, the ultimate choice should not compromise the animal's potential, the environment, or management abilities, but ensure sustainable farm productivity. This is according to AgriBank's technical advisor for livestock and rangeland, Erastus Ngaruka. He says that the objectives of livestock farming enterprises are aimed at increasing and sustaining production, both of which exert pressure on an animal's physiological abilities to perform. These performance aspects include reproduction, health, feed conversion, and general adaptability, amongst others. Ngaruka says the farm productivity depends on the environment, the animals, and the applied management regime. Ngaruka says that there are various livestock breeds with different structural and physiological abilities, which in turn influence their performance in any given environment. The animal's performance and survival are dependent on its ability to withstand or adapt to changes in environmental conditions. However, he says that animals that are native to the environment perform well compared to non-native animals. Let's have a look at the economic indicators. The Namibian dollar is down in value against these currencies, trading at 17 Namibian dollars and 31 cents for $1. MTC stock prices have dropped to 7 Namibian dollars and 51 cents on the NSX after a 0.10% decrease. Trustco Group Holdings dropped to 49 cents per share on the NSX, a notable price decrease of 10.90%. Zinc prices have dropped while other commodities continue to rise in price. Notably, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, sharply suited dignitaries gathered to inaugurate a footbridge on Monday, only for the structure to collapse beneath their feet, to the barely concealed delight of onlookers. Just as an organizer cut the ribbon at the ceremony in Kinshasa's Mont Ngafula district, the bridge buckled, both its handrails broke off, and the central section slumped into a stream a couple of meters below. We'll be back with news from other parts of Africa after this short break.
Africa Good Morning is a current affairs program that brings you the latest from Southern Africa and beyond. News, economics, sport, weather, interviews, and so much more. For any advertising or news-related queries, contact AGM at synergy.com.na. Africa Good Morning, bringing Africa to you.
We now move beyond Namibia's borders to bring you African news, and just a little later we'll bring you news from the rest of the globe. At least 6 people were beheaded and an Italian nun killed on Tuesday by Islamic State-linked insurgents in Mozambique's Nampula province, authorities said on Wednesday. President Filipe Nyusi said the insurgents unleashed a killing spree as they fled from soldiers from Mozambique, Rwanda, and the Southern African Development Community sent to tackle the violence. The insurgency is concentrated in Mozambique's northern province of Cabo Delgado and has claimed thousands of lives since it broke out in 2017, disrupting multi-billion-dollar natural gas projects. According to media reports confirmed by Nampula Province Secretary of State Meti Gondola, an 83-year-old Italian nun who lived in the city of Nacala was shot in an attack on Tuesday night, while 2 other missionaries managed to escape. Gondola gave no further details on the attack, but said the situation was worrisome. The Portuguese news agency Lusa said the nun who was shot in the head belongs to the Order of the Comboni Missionary Sisters and had been working in Mozambique since 1963. 18 victims of human trafficking have been rescued en route to destinations in the Gulf nations where they were to be sold into slavery, according to Kenya's Directorate of Criminal Investigations. The victims, all male Ethiopian nationals, were found in a house in Athi River on the outskirts of the capital, Nairobi, during a raid by detectives from the Transnational Organized Crimes Unit. 3 suspects, all Kenyan nationals, were detained, police said. This comes just a day after 24-year-old Diana Chepkomoe jetted back to the country after experiencing cruelty at the hands of an employer in Saudi Arabia. She said many other abused Kenyans were trapped in the Middle Eastern country and urged the government to help them. Kenya's Principal Secretary Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Macharia Kamau, said the challenge the country faced was the export of labor as house helps to Saudi Arabia. At least 15 people died in Rukoki in western Uganda after their homes were buried following Tuesday night mudslides caused by a heavy downpour that also left hundreds of residents displaced. Several others are reported missing or feared death as search and rescue operations by Uganda Red Cross officials, residents and local authorities intensify. Red Cross officials said the death toll had risen to 15 after 5 more bodies were retrieved from the debris on Wednesday morning. 6 other people have been rescued and transferred to a nearby hospital. Majority of the dead are mothers and children, Uganda Red Cross spokeswoman Irene Nakasita said in a statement. Now Simone Buhaka, the local council person, said the bodies had been retrieved from the debris of collapsed houses following the night rain that lasted about 6 hours. Mr. Buhaka said most homesteads were knocked down at 3 a.m. when their occupants were sleeping. Locals have been using rudimentary tools like hoes and spades to search and retrieve the victims' bodies. Kasese district, where the disaster occurred, is prone to landslides, especially during the rainy season, because it sits in the foothills of the Rwenzori Mountains that straddle the border with the Democratic Republic of Congo. After a prolonged drought, heavy rains have fallen on much of Uganda since July, causing death and flooding and the destruction of crops, homes and infrastructure. Last week, 2 people died following a mudslide in neighboring Bundibugyo district. Additionally, 2 people were swept away in floods in Kirembe, Kasese district in July. Flooding caused by heavy rains killed at least 24 people in Mbare district in eastern Uganda. Now, on to international news after the break. The suspect sought by Canadian authorities in a weekend stabbing spree that killed 10 people was arrested yesterday. Stay with us for the full story.
AgriMonitor is jou weeklikse landboukundige program wat jou die jongste nuus in die landbouverwante bedryf en onderwerpe wat daaraan gekoppel is, bring. Vir enige advertensie of nuusverwante navraag, kontak agrimonitor@synergy.com.na.
Heading into international news, the suspect sought by Canadian authorities in a weekend stabbing spree that killed 10 people in and around an indigenous reserve was arrested yesterday, then lapsed into unexplained medical distress and died soon after at a hospital, police said. Official word that the intense 4-day manhunt for Miles Sanderson, 30 years of age, ended with his death came during a late-night news conference hours after the Royal Canadian Mounted Police reported he had been taken into custody. Sanderson's demise clouded prospects of investigators ever clearly determining a motive for Sunday's deadly attacks, one of the bloodiest attacks of mass violence in the country's history. His older brother and accused accomplice Damien Sanderson, 31, was found slain on Monday in a grassy area of the James Smith Cree Nation Reserve in central Saskatchewan. Now, police said they were still investigating whether the younger sibling might have killed his brother in the aftermath of the stabbing rampage, which took place in the reserve and the nearby village of Walden, about 320 kilometers north of the provincial capital of Regina. Miles Sanderson was arrested near the town of Rothstern after a resident of an adjacent town reported spotting him with a knife attempting to break in. He then sped off in a stolen pickup truck, according to the RCMP. In addition to the 10 victims killed on Sunday, 18 others were wounded in the rampage, which unnerved a country where instances of mass murder are rare. Police said some of the victims appeared to have been targeted, while others were apparently random. U.S. healthcare plans that cover the main HIV prevention drug free of charge are in violation of the right to religious freedom, a judge has ruled. Employers are required to cover certain preventive services and medications in their insurance plans under U.S. law. But a group of Texas Christians sued in 2020 over coverage of the HIV pre-exposure prophylaxis or PrEP drug. They argued the drug can facilitate or encourage homosexual behavior. PrEP is recommended for adults who are at high risk of contracting HIV, and it can reduce infection risk as much as 99% when taken as prescribed. The CDC has credited its growing use as a key factor in declining HIV infections. Oral editions of the drug have been used by more than 600,000 people in 76 countries, according to the World Health Organization. Plaintiffs in Texas argued that the system by which the federal government decides what preventative services must be covered by employer insurance plans to be, it is unconstitutional rather. Now, the lawsuit filed by Austin-based attorney Jonathan Mitchell, who is credited with devising the state's 6-week abortion ban, brings together self-proclaimed Christian businesses and employers. One plaintiff in the case, Dr. Stephen Hotter, argued that covering PrEP drugs for his employees would be contrary to his sincere religious beliefs. The physician, who is a mega donor to the Republican Party and a frequent litigator on behalf of conservative causes, claimed common over-the-counter medications like Truvada and Descovy can facilitate or encourage homosexual behavior. CDC data shows that nearly 1 in 5 new HIV cases in the U.S. are now among women, with the vast majority coming through heterosexual contact. But District Judge Reed O'Connor ruled on Wednesday that the government cannot require private religious corporations to cover the drug with no cost sharing and no religious exemptions. Stay with us as we head into your local sports news after the break.
The My.NA Cars Show provides viewers with the best in-class cars content, engaging interviews, as well as a showcase of the latest cars-related news, products, and services. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact My.NA at synergy.com.na. My.NA Cars, more than just a ride.
Heading into local sports news, Namibia will have to play more international friendlies if they are to bolster their chances of qualifying to major competitions. Jackie Hertzer, head of the women's desk at the Namibia Football Association, says the team is currently in South Africa, where they managed to reach the semi-finals of the COSAFA Women's Championship after finishing as best runners-up out of 3 groups. The country will now face South Africa in the semi-finals on Friday as they attempt to reach the final. The challenge that Namibia faces is that they do not get to play more than 3 matches in a year unless they have qualified for a tournament. This is contrary to other nations, including South Africa, which have their national teams playing regular friendlies because of the availability of funds. A group of 34 horses and their riders will be taken to the course at the Rietsport Centrum Cups this weekend. Under new owners Hans Joachim Wiel and Sheila Buchloch, the club hopes to provide footing for leg 3 of the 2022 FEI Jumping World Challenge. The challenge will see Kate Allison, bronze medal winner at the 2021 finals that were held in Bulgaria in July this year, and the previous event winner Michelle Kunzel in action. The 2 riders have each entered 2 horses into the challenge. Youngsters Bianca Walker and Shani Frieda will also be strutting their stuff, while their fellow Namibian competitors Jenna Gilchrist and Jade Bassi Hansen are riding their challenge legs. Namibia's cricket men's national development side, the Eagles, defeated Lahore or Kwalanders by 5 runs to win the first of 2 50-over matches at the Wanderers Cricket Club in the capital on Wednesday. The informed Eagles won the toss and elected to bat before posting 262 runs for the loss of 8 wickets in 50 overs. Vice-captain and man of the match Johannes Smith top scored with 49 runs from 39 balls before claiming 2 wickets for 22 runs in 6 overs. Stay with us as we head into your international sports. Last season's beaten finalists Liverpool got their Champions League campaign off to a disastrous start in a 4-1 defeat away to Napoli on Wednesday, while Robert Lewandowski hit a hat-trick in a big win for Barcelona. Tottenham Hotspur and Bayern Munich also got their campaigns underway with victories, but Rangers were crushed 4-0 by Ajax in the Netherlands on their return to the group phase of Europe's elite club competition. Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool have won just 2 of their first 6 Premier League games this season, and there was to be no improvement on their trip to Italy as Napoli raced into an early lead and never looked back. In 2019, as the Blitzboks ran out to contest the final of the HSBC Cape Town Sevens at the Cape Town Stadium, Ronald Brown was in the stands with tears streaming down his face. He was only a spectator. Fast forward 3 years, and Brown, now a fully fledged Blitzbok himself, will have to check his emotions again when he runs onto the field on Friday to not only play at the stadium for the first time, but in his first Rugby World Cup sevens. Nick Kyrgios said winning is the only thing that matters at a Grand Slam, and that he was devastated by his 5-set loss to Karen Khachanov in the US Open quarterfinals on Tuesday. The Australian went toe-to-toe with Khachanov but did not do enough to counter the Russian's punishing serve as he went to end his bid for a maiden Grand Slam title. Kyrgios said that Khachanov, who saved 7 of the 9 break points he faced, was the better player in the biggest moments as the 27th seed punched his ticket to a Grand Slam semi-final for the first time. Now, if you're just joining us, we'll be bringing you up to speed with the highlights from today's broadcast right after this short break.
Namibia sonder grense vertel weekliks die stories van Namibiërs wat oor see of elders in die buiteland werk. Die program nooi jou om saam te reis na nuwe bestemmings en meer oor ons mense, hul lewens, talente, sienswyses en Namibië se trotste wêreldwye voetspoor te leer. Volg Namibia sonder grense op Netwerk TV, NTV, oneup2.com en Republikeinse Facebookblad. Namibia sonder grense handel oor uitreik, gesels, reis en wenke en soms toer ons na besienswaardighede in die land waar ons kuier. Kontak grense@synergy.com.na en vertel ons van Namibiërs wat jy oor see ken of om jou reisprodukte te adverteer. Namibia sonder grense, ons land oral in die wêreld.
You are watching NMH at 1, and if you have just joined us, here are your news highlights. 18 victims of human trafficking have been rescued en route to destinations in the Gulf nations where they were to be sold into slavery, according to Kenya's Directorate of Criminal Investigations. The suspect, sought by Canadian authorities in a weekend stabbing spree that killed 10 people in and around an indigenous reserve, was arrested yesterday, then lapsed into unexplained medical distress and died. Namibia will have to play more international friendlies if they are to bolster their chances of qualifying to major competitions, Jackie Hertzer, head of the women's desk at the Namibia Football Association, says. Those have been your highlights. Thank you for staying with NMH at 1 and spending your lunch hour with me, Ashwin Berry. Remember to tune in every weekday at 1 p.m. as we take you through the latest happenings in Namibia and beyond. That's it from us in studio. But don't go anywhere, because up next is news from Namibia's capital in our Windhoek Express segment. Have a splendid day.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
Hallo en welkom by We Talk. My naam is Christine Creer en vandag se onderhoud pas so mooi in by September maand en die vrolike lente seisoen. Ons kuier by die Wilde Eend Blommewinkel en gesels met die eienaar Madeleine Blighnout. Madeleine is 'n onderwyseres wat haar kreatiwiteit en liefde vir blomme uitleef deur haar 2 winkels wat sy hier in Windhoek besit. Ons het 'n propvol episode wat vandag op julle wag, so kom ons spring weg met 'n vinnige kykie na vandag se nuus. Volgende kyk ons na al die lekker nuus wat jy vandag op die Windhoek Express webblad kan gaan lees. Die Land Rover Owners of Namibia het rolstoele en looprame van Duitsland ontvang om tussen die mense van Namibia te versprei. Die LRON het besluit om met die Windhoek Lions Club saam te span om die groot taak van verspreiding aan te pak. Die voorsitter, meneer JC Creer, en die Lions Zone se voorsitter, meneer Frank Schatz, het die 40 rolstoele en 20 looprame ontvang, wat geskenk sal word vir mense wat dit benodig, maar dit nie kan bekostig nie. Indien jy nie weet nie, is die LRON nie net vir eienaars van Land Rovers nie, maar is ook oop vir ander 4x4 voertuig-eienaars. Hulle doelwitte is natuur, omgewings en humanitêre projekte, sowel as 'n magdom ander aktiwiteite. Die tweede been van die DTS Volleyball for All geleentheid is ook om die draai en sal op 1 Oktober plaasvind. Na 'n suksesvolle afskopgeleentheid in Maart is registrasie nou oop vir die tweede been en spanne is welkom om weer deel te neem aan die pret van die grootste volleybalgeleentheid in Suider-Afrika. Die sluitingsdatum vir registrasie is Woensdag 21 September om 12:00. Meer inligting oor registrasie en meer oor die geleentheid is beskikbaar op die DTS webblad. Jy kan ook meer lees oor die 3 Bentleys wat die wêreldtoer en ook 'n draai hier in Namibië kom maak het. Meneer Robert Wilkinson en sy vriend meneer John Walton ry al jare lank hul vintage Bentleys, gebou in 1926, reg oor die wêreld. Hulle reis om die wêreld het amper uitgewerk, maar het tot stilstand gekom weens die Rusland-Oekraïne oorlog. Tog het hulle al reeds na byna elke kontinent gereis. Nadat hulle 3 motors van Engeland na Kaapstad gestuur het, het hulle meer as 'n maand gelede na Namibië vertrek en het die grondpaaie na 6riem gery en toe verder na die kus. Die reis gaan binnekort voort na die Victoria Watervalle en dan verder deur Afrika. Die voertuie was by die Old Wheelers Club Museum in Windhoek te sien. In ander nuus, die Okapuka Game Ranch gaan ook binnekort opgeknap word. Die Okapuka Game Ranch, wat aan die buitewyke van Windhoek geleë is, het onlangs 'n gesamentlike onderneming met Gondwana Collection Namibia aangegaan. Hierdie samewerking bring 'n nuwe hoofstuk vir beide maatskappye met die gesamentlike onderneming wat gelyke aandelehouding tussen Klein Okapuka CC en Gondwana Collection Namibia insluit. Okapuka is oorspronklik in 1998 geopen en het sedertdien 'n plaaslike en internasionaal bekende steunpilaar in die Namibiese toerismebedryf geword. Okapuka beplan 'n uitgebreide opknapping van die lodge wat slegs die eerste stap sal wees om hierdie instansie nuwe lewe te gee. Opknappings sal in Oktober begin met Gondwana Collection Namibia wat besprekings sal neem vanaf 1 November. Die eerste gaste sal in April volgende jaar by die lodge verwelkom word. En dit is al vir vandag se nuus. Vandag hier tussen die pragtige blomme van Wilde Eend Blommewinkel en gesels met die net so pragtige eienaar, Madeleine Blighnout. Madeleine, baie dankie dat ons vandag hier by jou kan kuier.
Dankie, dis 'n voorreg.
Vertel 'n bietjie vir ons, jy is 'n onderwyser van beroep, maar het by die blommebedryf betrokke geraak. Hoe het dit gebeur?
Ek het nog altyd van blomme gehou. En toe ek nog klein was, het ek en my ma altyd in die tuin gewerk Sondag, Saterdag bedoel ek. En ons het blommetjies gepluk en gerangskik. Ek het so 'n paar blomme rangskikking kursusse aan by my ma ook bygewoon. So my liefde vir blomme het daarvan af gekom. Dis waar die saadjie geplant is en hy het intussen gegroei tot 'n mooi boom waar ons vrugte van pluk. En een Saterdag terwyl ek in die tuin gewerk het, het 'n bloemiste in Windhoek my gebel en gevra of ek nie haar blommewinkel wil koop nie. En dadelik het Jeremia 29 vers 11 weer my kop ingespring wat sê, dat die Here beplan vir my 'n toekoms van voorspoed en hoop. En dit was nou net vir my die antwoord op hierdie vraag van wil ek dit doen? En die antwoord was ek wil dit definitief doen. So daar het my eerste blommewinkel begin. Dit was at Flowers in Vernhill. En so het ek toe nou die onderwys gelos en vir 'n ruk lank met dit aangegaan en later het ek toe nou weer in die onderwys beland. En 'n hele paar jaar daarna het ek besluit maar ek sal nie so baie goed tegelyk kan doen nie. Dit is 'n bietjie te veel hooi op my vurk. Want ons het toe nog op daardie stadium ander besighede ook gehad waarmee ons aan die gang was. En ek het toe nou die blommewinkel gelos. Nou is ek weer in die blommebedryf saam met die onderwys en saam met al die ander goed wat ek voorheen gehad het. Maar hierdie keer het ek nou gegroei, soos daai boompie. En nou pluk ek die vrugte van die lessies wat ek geleer het. En ek dink hierdie keer gaan dit sommer baie beter.
En wanneer het dit begin? Wanneer het jy daai eerste winkel oopgemaak?
Dit was in 2004. Ja,
Kom nou al 'n lang pad.
Dit is 'n baie lang tyd, ja.
En ons is nou hier by die Wilde Eend blommewinkel. Dit is net een van julle twee winkels. Die ander een is natuurlik in Grove Inkopiesentrum.
Ja,
Wat se een was eerste en hoe het julle besluit om uit te brei na twee winkels toe?
Hierdie ene was eerste, Wilde Eend. Ons het in begin 2020 met hom begin. My suster het vir my gevra of ek nie belang sou stel om 'n paar blommetjies hier te sit nie, maar ek dink sy het gedink ek wil net 'n soos 'n paar bossietjies hierso hê. Maar ek dink sy het nie besef ek wil regtig 'n blommewinkel hê nie. En dit het toe nou gegroei na iets wat vir my baie vervullend is. So hy was eerste. En toe het die Grove gekom laas jaar November. Het ons 'n aanbieding ook gekry om die Grove se winkel oor te koop. En weer eens ek het altyd so geloof wat sê dat daar moet vir jou 3 tekens wees en 3 deure wat oop gaan. En daar het definitief vir my 3 deure oop gegaan. Hulle het sommer so vinnig oopgeklap. En ja, die antwoord was toe nou ja en sedert November is ons toe nou by die Grove. So nou het ons die twee.
Vir die van julle wat nie weet nie, julle is by die Grove reg by Spar se ingang, ja. So mens kan dit nie mis nie.
Ja.
Hierdie een by Wilde Eend is bietjie weggesteek. Ek dink mense moet weet van hom. Mense loop so heel deur die amper verby die kombuis hier na julle toe, maar tog so mooi hierso. Jy lyk nou 'n baie kreatiewe vrou. Hoekom juist blomme?
Blomme laat my lewe. Ek voel altyd as 'n mens 'n saadjie geplant het, dan groei hy in 'n boompie en dan kan jy die vrugte sien. So in blomme is dit wat hoe ek daaroor voel, dat 'n mens dit laat jou lewe en veral om vir mense blomme te maak en dit maak hulle gelukkig, maak dit my nog meer gelukkig. So dis definitief iets wat my passie is.
En vertel 'n bietjie vir ons meer van julle blomme. Waar kry julle julle blomme vandaan?
Ons grootste verskaffers is Johannesburg en Kaapstad.
En hoe gereeld kry julle nuwe blomme in?
Dit hang af hoe besig ons is. Dis nogal 'n kuns om te besluit hoeveel blomme jy moet hê en hoeveel jy moet bestel en te sorg dat jy die regte blomme het, want as almal rooi rose soek, moet jy rooi rose hê. As almal nou witte soek, dan moet jy witte hê. So daar is 'n balans wat jy moet handhaaf. En sorg dat die blomme altyd vars is en dat jou diens goed is.
Ja. Ek kan dink dit vat baie ervaring om te weet wanneer en hoeveel. Ek kan dink in Februarie oor Valentynsdag moet jy seker 'n paar somme maak.
Ja, daarso moet jy definitief jou kop bymekaar hou in alle rigtings.
En vertel 'n bietjie meer van jouself. Buiten vir skool gee en die winkels, is daar enige ander besighede of stokperdjies?
Ek sou graag nog besighede wil hê as ek tyd het daarvoor. My ander stokperdjie is natuurlik klavier. So ek speel dan so af en toe 'n bietjie klavier. Dekor, ek is baie lief om huise mooi te maak en dekor te doen.
En jy is ook natuurlik 'n ma en 'n ouma, as ek mag sê. Hoe kry jy tyd vir alles?
My ouers het altyd gesê 'n mens kan enigiets doen waarop jy jou hart sit en jy moet balans in jou lewe hê en jou prioriteite reg kry. So ek dink as 'n mens fokus met dit waarmee jy besig is, dan kan 'n mens redelik 'n klompie goed gedoen kry. So ek fokus as ek by die skool is en ek fokus as ek by die winkel is op dit waarmee ek besig is.
Jy het ook natuurlik 'n paar mense in diens geneem en jy het 'n lekker span wat jou uithelp. Vertel vir ons 'n bietjie meer van die mense wat vir jou werk.
Ja, hulle is my regterhand want as ek by die skool is, moet hulle die hele winkel of moet die winkel bestuur word. So nee, hulle is definitief baie handig vir as ek nou nie hier is nie. Maar dis daarom nou nie net hulle nie. Daar's baie ander mense ook wat help. My man, hy doen die afleweringe, so hy's ook in diens. En dan my skoonseun en my dogter. Hulle bly in die Kaap, maar hulle is ook vennote in die besigheid. So hulle elke dag help hulle my met hulp en raad en besluite wat geneem moet word. So daar's 'n klomp mense en my pa moet ook baie keer verbykom met 'n paar afleweringe.
Nee, dit is so lekker om goed te doen waarvoor jy lief is met die mense waarvoor jy lief is natuurlik. Julle doen ook troues en ander events. Hoe kan ons kykers met julle in kontak kom indien hulle julle dienste wil gebruik?
Ons is op Facebook as Floral Expressions by Madeleine en dan is ons ook op Google. So julle kan vir ons daar gaan kry.
Wonderlik. Baie dankie. Ons gaan nou 'n bietjie hier tussen die blomme rondspeel en Madeleine en die wonderlike mense wat vir haar werk gaan 'n bietjie vir ons meer wys en vertel.
Hello, my name is Antonio. I'm working for Floral Expressions, so I'm a florist. So as you can see here, we do the arrangements. So I have been experienced for 70 years now. So before I came to Floral Expressions, I was working at Roman Care for 12 years. So as you can see now, we made this arrangement here. We have chrysanthemums, so when they call it stems. This is also a chrysanthemum, but it's just yellow. That's a purple one. We have a strelitzia here, as you can see. And then we have also the white one, is a veronica. And then some pillars which you can hang on there. This is Khomas. This is also ordinary, just having the two one. And this is also from this years. That's why we are now specifically here, and here you can see this readies. So we are actually working into the second, let's say we have 1, 2, 3, 4, study check. Then we have 1, 2, 3, veronicas. So we have not performed the flowers as you can say every flower must be on one place, and then we have the group of them, then we have to run it, and we can again give us which can hang on. And then have how you work in between them. That's why the arrangement can be like that. That can be for a birthday, or it can be for office, or it can be for certain events. So when you put it upright like this, you must be standing one side, but you can also do it around it. And then, as you can see, this one side is like this, it's the back side, and this is the front side. So you can put it either anywhere you like, but it's meant for any occasion for beautiful flowers.